Hello everyone, thanks for joining, thanks for the introduction. So I'm going to introduce myself real quick. I'm Johan Luttun, software developer working for AC Geeks, founded by Thomas Kreinen, who is the person behind IFC OpenShell, which is an open source library to read and write IFC files. And I will present you the validation service. I will first do a very quick intro, and then I will do a demonstration, and I hope our audience is able to test the tool as well. So the function of the tool is to provide a neutral, transparent checking of a IFC file to validate it against the IFC syntax, the IFC schema, BSDD consistency, and implementer agreements and information propositions. And this tool provides a report, so it presents the results of the validation, detailed results, and as well as the validation status. So I will just, bring you to the link of the application. If you're already on it, that's perfect. Otherwise, you need your bSI credentials to access the application. Okay, so it is the front page of the validation service with here a drop zone box where you can drag and drop some files, as many files as you want, IFC files. And you can do so also in the dashboard page. So you also have this drop zone. And here you can see on my screen, some results of checks, and you can see the validation status there. So for example, this file passed all the checks, and this one, it stopped at the syntax check. What is nice about the tool is that you can view the report. So in the report, what is contained is some general information about the file. So like the authoring application, the MVD, and some light stats about the file, and an overview of the validation status of your file. So here you can see that syntax is valid. On all those boxes, the sections, you can see the results, detailed results of the error message you get from the checks. So here there was an error in the file regarding to the schema, because for an IFC classification instance, for example, there is an edition date as an attribute, and it shouldn't be a string. Here you can see it's clearly from this file, it's a string, so the check program is able to catch this error. The BSDD presentation of results aims at presenting in a hierarchical manner the domain classification and the requirement for this classification. So have you uploaded some files? Do you have some errors?
Not a huge file, so it's processing.
Yeah.
So I guess that, okay, again, that's basically it. So that's about the idea of the validation service. Now we're going to have let's say, an interaction on specific files and maybe specific errors. But first I want to understand if it's clear, the idea and the scope and the overall picture of this validation service before we go into the concrete examples.
Yeah, but how do you choose the MVD to test against?
So we're not testing against
the schema.
Yeah, it's against the schema, but we are not testing the MVD compliance.
And it's good that we have a whiteboard. So
it's good for the online participants as well. Or?
Yeah, I think you can see that. So otherwise, I have a presentation which is very similar, but there is a video stream. Probably let's point it a little bit in that direction. So, and as Johan said, you can see the validation service made by modules. There are different modules. So let's say there is one module that is checking the syntax. And then there is another module that is checking the schema. Let me give you an example. This one is checking, maybe, I don't know if you have.
I have a slide for that.
What is the difference between the syntax and the schema? The
Okay.
syntax is just
Yeah.
step file.
Exactly.
You have a
Step syntax.
Here you have an example. So, if you're familiar with this step grammar,
Yeah.
would you guess what's the error there?
It could be some brackets missing, or
It could be. It's not.
maybe it's missing one dollar sign. Or
No, there is two commas, like following each other, and they're supposed to separate attributes. So it's the kind of
it should be a
errors.
dollar sign in between or something else.
Yeah, or for example,
Exactly.
the missing parentheses. That's
Yeah.
maybe someone
Yeah,
forget
well,
to.
that's-
This is complete express schema. Express syntax check. Okay, this is a syntax. The second module is checking the schema. Here you have an example. Usually, the one that I do is that there is a GUID attribute for every entity. For most of entities, there is a GUID, and sometimes you have integer where it's supposed to be a string. Okay, so this is a data type issue. So this is a schema problem. Okay, and then there are other modules.
And the error statements, etc., is included here or not?
The where rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, the where rules should be included here, and they are currently under development.
Okay.
Now it's checking inverse cardinality, so it's already a little bit advanced, but it's missing the where rules at the moment. They're currently under development. And then there are other modules. There is the STD module, let's call it, okay, which is checking the STD. So if you have an IFC file which has classification reference applying to two entities, which is pointing to a URI, and this URI is pointing to BSD. And if I have a content in BSD, then I can check the content against the file. And this is another module. I'm getting to your answer to the MVD. So these two applies on every file, independently from the version and independently from the MVD. Okay. Then there are some other blocks. Okay. I'm trying to use a terminology that is now a little bit known because it's a lot of time we are using this. There are informal propositions, implementation agreements, concept templates, general usages. To make it simple, these can be seen as further constraints on top of the schema. Okay, so in an informal proposition, an example is IFC close the shell. Every shell should loop the face. Every edge of the face, every edge of a cube in this case. Every edge should be referenced twice by the loop of the face in an opposite direction. You know, this is an informal proposition. It's written in English in the specification. There's nothing checking that. Okay, so we have built a rule to check this in an automatic way. So this is an example of informal proposition. An example of implementers. So as you can see, is a further specification of what the schema already is. Okay, there's nothing new. It's just further semantics. Implementation agreements is very similar. There must be maximum one IFC site in every file. This is something that probably is written in text or in some sort of implementation agreement database, but it's English. There is nothing checking that. Okay. So this is again another further constraints, further specification on top of every schema. Okay. And this might be tricky because, for example, this one might apply for IFC 2x3 and IFC 4, but for IFC 4.3, we might allow multiple IFC sites. So maybe this implementation agreement at the moment is written in English. What we can do is that we can create rules out of this, and maybe the rules applies only to 2x3 and 4, and therefore IFC for log 3, there is another rule which is saying minimum one, maximum. No maximum, but you can have more than one. Okay, so maybe you can have, so these kind of implementation agreements are IFC version specific, and they are also MVD specific, because some of these constraints, for example, concept templates or general usages, which are basically how to put together the entities to form a meaningful concept. Okay, for example, the fact that you have the IFC alignment that is related to the IFC alignment horizontal, to the IFC alignment vertical, and to the IFC alignment cant. Okay, so this construct is articulated in concept templates and general usages. Again, these are all terminology that exist, but to make everything simple, all these can be seen as further constraint on top of the schema. And what the validation service is doing is using a technology, which is the Gherkin syntax, to describe these in a human readable and computer interpretable way. But you're right, some of these rules are IFC version specific and MVD specific. And at the moment there are many options to treat these. You can either say to the system, take the file, read the version, and apply only certain rules that apply to that version. But that means adding metadata to the rules. Otherwise, at the moment, the IFC version and MVD is encoded inside of the rule. So an example of a rule, I don't know if we have it here. Yeah, this one. Yeah. So given an IFC file with this model view definition and with this schema identifier, then check these things. Okay. So one option is we can treat it in this way, and if tomorrow we need to change these rules, we need to change these for the IFC4, we simply take this rule. All these are parameters, so we change this parameter. We can make an IFC4.3 specific version of this rule, and maybe we get rid of the last check because we don't need it. So as you can see, rules are very flexible, and we are trying to implement them in a common way. And what we hope to do is that the MVD will be defined at the end by the set of rules that defines if a file is valid for a certain MVD. It's a little bit tricky, but I hope you can get the concept. The definition of the MVD, so the MVD is defined by the set of rules that you should be passed to say this file is alignment-based reference view compliant.
So then you will get rid of the terms like developer agreement and concept template and all that.
That's the idea. That's the idea. It's of course it's a gradual process, because now we have to take all these, let's say, legacy blocks and gradually.
It's very confusing with all these blocks there with different terms and.
Yeah, where to be honest, I really don't know how to define all these things. That's why I explicitly use the terminology box. It's a box that contains all these things. We can define them as further constraints or further specification on the schema. But the idea is that all these can be written in Gherkin, and now the job is simply gradually to transform these into Gherkin. And for example, we're going to use the implementers forum to do this, because if you find an agreement, I won't let you write it down in English like we did in the past. I will ask you to write a Gherkin rule of that, so that the validation service can check your file. And the same is doing Rail. When Rail finds an informal proposition or an agreement or a concept template, for example, IFC alignment must nest exactly one horizontal, at most one vertical, at most one cant. Okay, this is the configuration that I want to find in your file. So when you provide a file of IFC 4.3 alignment-based reference view, it must have one horizontal, can have 0 vertical and 0 cant, or 1 vertical and 1 cant. 2 is not possible. 3 is not possible. So that's the definition for which we need knowledge from the experts to capture this and to put this rule into this block of checks that make the MVD and the IFC version definition. So that's the idea. And just to conclude, so this BSD block is a little bit standalone, because you can see this is applicable to project-specific file, while this one and syntax and schema are always applicable. Meaning, if you give me a file today, I can check this, and this if I have the rule. I don't need to know anything about your project, because these blocks here will only tell something about the validity of the IFC file, independent from the project. On top of that, an owner or a user can say, okay, now I want my project my IFC file to contain these and these and these objects with these properties, these materials, and to be classified in this way with BSD. So if you ask me to check that, you need to give me more. You need to give me your BSD domain. Maybe you need to give me an IDS.
Yeah, that was a question, because you have in BSD, you have some private data, or protect private data. So then you, in this system, then you get the username and password for that part of BSD.
At the moment, everything that is published on BSD is public, but we have received some requests to make private domain on BSD.
Yeah, and that is a part of the business plan for BSD, isn't it? That you can buy
Yes,
yourself some space there.
On these, I'm not sure I fully answer. That's a question for the guy in the back. But I can tell you that we received many requests for private domain. We're still figuring out what will be the best way, because some criteria can be some IP-based, token-based, region-based, or maybe based on the account, like at trimbleconnect.com. So we're still figuring out the best way to do the user management for the private part. But yes, we already received some requests for private section of the BSD. So in this case, you will provide an IFC file with a URI that will point to a private space of the BSD. Of course, the validation service should be able to retrieve the domain and to check the IFC file against that. But again, for this, we are going into the, let's say, project-specific stuff. The validation service is now focusing on these part, which are the enabler of any possible project. These things has to be done right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you cannot exchange a file between two applications.
And then on top of this, or below this, you can put your own IDS files then to
That exactly. This is exactly the case. I have one slide, probably I can show you in my presentation, which is exactly doing this. Instead of this one, there is a line here and saying, okay, BSDD is borderline because the validation service is checking BSD. So the upper part is validation service. BSDD is a little bit in the middle because we are checking BSD with validation service. Everything, so if you want to specify, I want my object with this classification, with this property, with this material, which is project specific, you write an IDS or an IDS plus BSDD domain. And so below this line is no concern of validation service. Above this line is validation service scope. And this was an explicit request from software vendors. So software vendors asked buildingSMART to develop this and not this.
Okay.
Because this is to make sure buildingSMART, that there is a third-party reference, buildingSMART. I don't want to use the term canonical implementation or reference implementation, but there is something telling you if your file is a good IFC file. And these, probably many software vendors would like to develop an IDS checker or a BSDD checker. And so for this reason, vendors asked to buildingSMART not to develop something that can potentially compete with them. Well, this one is not competing. This one is enabling them to work. This one is software vendors' business case.
Yeah. But for the lowest box with all these small boxes inside, templates, user agreements, etc., how do you get an overview of all the checks there?
Yeah, good
the
point.
Service, and can you check them in and out?
Yeah, good point. So this is probably the feature request that we have on top of our list at the moment, because now you can. Do you mind showing the GitHub repository? So at the moment, there are two GitHub repositories. Because first of all, this service is a web open free service that buildingSMART is providing for free. This part for free forever. So forever and ever. Damn, we are on record. Okay, we'll cut it out. We'll cut this part. I was there. So let me resume from there. Okay, so this part is developed by buildingSMART. It's open and free. There are two repositories on GitHub, the GitHub page of buildingSMART. One is buildingSMART/validate, and one is buildingSMART/IFC Gherkin rules. So the the buildingSMART/validate is the, let's say, the infrastructure, the front end, the back end, what you see online, in case someone wants to make it better. But to make sure that it's fully transparent. So the whole infrastructure, maybe Johan can say more about that, but how the files are uploaded, how they are treated, the actions and the Docker containers that are used to handle everything. It's everything there. It's fully transparent. Everyone can clone the repository and have their own version of the checker in their machine. For example, if they don't want to publish IFC file in this validation service.
Are you even allowed to copy this and put it into a commercial IDS checker, for instance?
Potentially, this came out also this morning. So I'll get to the question. So there is one validate part, and then there is the IFC Gherkin, which is the content. So you can see the two repositories as one is the infrastructure and one is the content, the set of rules. There is nothing in this collection of rules. So the content, we will be developing mainly this, okay? But there is nothing preventing the community to extend this tool, okay, and check whatever they want to check. Also, IDS things, because they can use the same technology, the Gherkin technology, to check project-specific stuff. They fork the repository and they extend the second part, the Gherkin rules. Absolutely, that is legit. In Boston, we had a couple of vendors that were really enthusiastic about this tool, and they told me, I bet that in 1 or 2 years, consultants and others will start to write organization-specific or project-specific rules on top of the core one. On top of the core. So they will rely on buildingSMART for the core one, okay, and then they will build something on top. And for us, this is fully fine. And also, the community can, to be honest, can also contribute to this one. So if someone reads the documentation and finds a statement like every closed shell should be da-da-da, and this is not checked, and they believe that should be a formal rule, they can fork, branch, make an addition, and make a pull request. If we think that the code is good, the validation is good, we take it inside and we will have another validation pool. This is all to say, to coming back to your original answer, there's a question. So I always take long frames. At the moment you can, how do you know what is being checked? At the moment you go in that repository and you have these things. In the near future, our top feature request is that as an end user, it would be really nice to have a flat list of rules, maybe with an ID, maybe with a title, that points to the code, the Python code, and the Gherkin rules. So as a user, I have a flat list of things that I know they have been checked. Okay, even an informative one, a flat one. Maybe we can also group them per version, per MVD. I don't know, this is purely user interface, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the idea is, yes, at the moment, they are all in one repository, but the idea is, yes, we can structure them.
And then can you add this as a part of a commercial solution? No way. Have you thought about that?
You mean the business model of buildingSMART? No.
Yeah, for instance, if we as a software vendor want to have a validation of all the files we produce before we send them out of the system,
Yeah.
Would this be something that we could incorporate into our solution?
Absolutely. It's open, it's public, you can do it. What probably another comment that we got from, I think, Autodesk in Boston again, was this is really great, I love it, and I'm pretty sure that soon enough someone will start inserting these into contracts. When you're submitting an IFC file, I want your IFC file to pass this block of the bSI validation service.
And then you don't need to have certification of software systems in a way. You just have to validate the files that comes out of the systems.
You are saying that, but in a way, yes, you are certifying the file, okay? And the idea is that with a lot of certified files, you can extract some metrics or some KPI and say, because you have a metadata of the file. Can you show all the information that you get when you check a file? So you have the authoring application, the version, and such. So with the big volume of files, in case it's a test application, you can say Trimble Quadri version 22 is consistently doing well on this part. And you can also be more specific. Is consistently doing well in georeferencing. Remember that we talked about we can package those rules. We can also package them by topic. So there are 10 rules to be sure that the file is properly georeferenced, and Trimble Connect is testing them every time. Maybe there is one or two wrong files, because it can also be the case that, of course, this system is open to user mistakes. So if a user mis-export an IFC file and uploads to the validation service and gets an error, then it's a, let's say, negative count, a -1, let's say. But in a big volume, it will disappear. You know, you will have 300 versus 1. So you can say, yeah, it's not. You can argue that this is a very file-based, proof, evidence-based software certification. This software with this version is consistently doing well on this topic. So you want to, I'm probably shooting too far, but do you want to buy this? Look at how it is performed in the past.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. So I think that most important thing is that we are building this. We just started. We have a lot of work to do here. That's why Railway Room, Tunnel, and probably Bridge will help us doing this. Tunnel probably will have some informal proposition or implementation agreement or concept template. You choose the word. They will have a further specification like the alignment example they would like to put forward in this validation service. In this case, it's a win-win because they get better IFC file and buildingSMART gets a tool that is already in the validation service that will be used for the certification. Yeah. So it's great on every level. And yeah, for this reason, we just started. We need help from the project. And this is released in beta version because we want you to give it a try, upload files, and let us know every possible problem, like okay, files are taking too long. We need to come out with a queuing mechanism. Or this very morning, Angel from Autodesk found a bug in the implementation of a bug, was a partial implementation of a rule. The rule was not complete. He had something with open shell with voids, closed shell with voids. So something very specific. And for this reason, creating rules is something that we are providing in methodology. The Railway project is embracing this methodology. It's made of, let's say, 3 core parts. When you create a rule, you have to have the Gherkin version of the rule, meaning the, can you maybe show a rule? Yeah. You have to have the Gherkin version, which is this one, okay, based on the give and then syntax. Yeah. Then you have the Python implementation of the rule. And to build these two, you have unit test files, which are very small IFC files, like the one that Handel tried this morning, that you use to check if your Python implementation is correct. So the process is, I come up with a rule in plain English. Then I try to build in the Python code, maybe in a parametric way, you know, an IFC file with schema identifier, this one.
A file with
yeah, field value. So these are 2 parameters. So we try to push a better and nicer and modular implementation, parametric implementation of rules. So with one rule, we can write many Gherkin features. And so the process is you start here, you do this, and then you have an IFC file, and then you give it a try. And then you understand that probably you missed something in implementation and you fix it. So it's an iterative process, or maybe you fix the grammar here. You adjust the grammar or the expression. And at the end of the day, with the Gherkin, the Python, and the unit test that helps you fine-tuning the rule, you publish everything in the IFC Gherkin rules repository. Today, if you go over there, you find Gherkin, you find Python code, and you find the unit tests that are defined to make the rules. So this is a process that we need to educate the community, the railway developers, and whoever wants to extend this service to follow this process to get to better rules. That's the idea.
Question. How can we simplify the message about the change in the validation of certification of softwares by explaining that all the rules that are including the MVDs, existing MVDs, are managed by this validation service? How we can find in validation service program the set of rules, for example, defined for the MVD language reference. Can we explain that we don't lose anything of the rules defined in the MVDs, existing MVDs? We can reduce them, but maybe to remove some of them because they are not relevant for some subjects. How can we explain this as simple as possible?
I give you my interpretation. So there is a lot of education and training to do for people, but the first, probably the biggest lesson learned of this summit is that newcomers don't care about a lot of details. They simply want things to work. So we can explain with a clear line or with a nice graphical diagrams the distinction between the core part that makes an IFC file a valid IFC file and everything that you build on top. Because most users are interested in this and take this for granted. They do not care. They do not want to know. Sometimes it's too complicated. They take for granted that this is okay. And this is actually the problem today. People believe that this is fine. They export the file, they try to import it, and something breaks. Because there is a problem here, not here. It's not a problem of I'm missing a property or your material is wrong. The problem is here. So from an end user point of view, yes, we can try to simplify the discussion and explain, but I'm pretty sure that technical people will be really interested in knowing this part, but most end user will not care. They will say, this is for granted. I trust that the IFC file is good. I don't want to know. It's too complicated. It's not my cup of tea.
The message is not for end users, but for people who develop MVDs, and they want to know where are the rules defining MVDs.
Yeah, sure. So the people defining MVDs are software vendors in this case, with a collaboration of buildingSMART and potential support by the project. So whoever is working on these blocks, let's forget about these two. Whoever is working on these blocks has to have a clear understanding of this picture. But yes, it's fine. I totally agree with you. We need to explain this. But for example, we have already one big vendor which understood that. So it's fine. This one we were with Autodesk and ODA. They already understood these things. So they're more.
We have to explain this also to the stakeholders who pay for the definition of it. To a certain level, because it's very similar. I'm paying for that, but I don't want to know too many details. We can explain this, but at the end of the day, to develop these, you have to have some technical knowledge. The stakeholders are paying for, but most of the stakeholders, I can talk for NFI. They don't want to know these things. They do not care. They care that it exists and it's strong and it's robust and someone is checking. So how many errors did you get?
1 trillion. So I was investigating one of the errors now. So that's, of course, I guess you got this requirement already, but you made reference to a line number, right? And then you have to go in there. This was a closed shell that was looping exactly two loops or whatever.
Yeah.
So then you have to go in there and find this line, and then you have, this is a BREP representation, and then it's a product representation. So it's a lot of drilling down in the IFC file manually in Notepad to find out that I found out that this was a manhole file. But if the system can drill down itself and report back the name of the object that was had this problem.
This
Yes,
can
it's-
easily be done.
Yeah.
This is a good software. At the moment, the errors is retrieving the express instance number, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we can add the
The
name
hash file
attribute.
number. Yeah. And this
Yeah,
is
or the
again just a
QID.
closed shell that is in a PREP, that is in a product, that is. And when you come there, you understand that this is a manhole.
Yeah. There is a bit of
And maybe the name, we have the name of the manhole also in the file. So if I knew that, that would be great.
Yeah, I understand this. So this is it's very case specific. We need to understand how scalable it is, because it's a very much human-based activity to drill down to the origin of the error. I would say there are two processes here that are very related, but we need to trace a clear distinction. One thing is finding the error, and the other process is fixing them. So what you're saying is it's really nice. Is the first process provides you enough information to facilitate the second process, the fixing part.
Yeah.
So we want to be as good as possible in the first part, but we are not dealing, this validation service at least is not dealing with the second process, fixing.
No,
It's
not
dealing-
fixing, but helping.
Helping to understand the reason. And another tricky part is that sometimes you have, we're getting philosophical here, but this validation service is finding the effects of a problem, not the cause of the problem. So you might have 3 errors, which are 3 different errors, 3 effects.
Yeah.
The cause might be 1. If
Yeah.
you fix this, you solve 3 errors.
I have chased bugs for 20 years and know all about this process.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this process is identifying effects and not the cause. So the cause, what you're saying is right. Probably it's given by your experience. You want to get as closer as possible to the cause of the error.
Because now it's no problem. I guess it's a general implementation error. But we haven't noticed this before because we haven't had this good validation tool before. So I can go to the developer and say, please check the shell implementation, and he will come back and fix it. So then we are down to 1,000 errors instead of 1 billion.
Yeah.
But if it's just a few errors then, and it's a certain line, and you just get this line information, it could be good to be able to drill a little bit further. Because then it could be this specific item in the model that is something strange.
Yeah, I mean,
And that's good for the end user, at least if the end user or advanced BIM manager or whatever it is looking at it.
this is a good
That's for true.
feature request. Yeah, this is a very good feature request.
But you have the line, for example, for the syntax check here.
Yeah.
So there's a problem with the way this string is written,
Yeah.
because it doesn't have, it has to be between apostrophes, and here it's between quotes.
Yeah.
So it's not
Then
valid, but you
it's-
know where it happens, on line 38, column 50.
Yeah.
But for the,
And you also reference to the column where the problem is, that is good.
yeah, and you have a little arrow there.
That's very good. That's
Yeah,
very,
this is a
very helpful. in that
Basic,
Yeah.
basic.
That's
It's
very, very
basic, but
helpful. Mm.
it breaks your file.
But yes, that's the idea. And what you're saying is right. Probably also others mentioned this morning. This tool helped them to identify a bug in their file before submitting the file to any certification or whatever existing process. And this is exactly the objective of this kind of service. It's a self-service service for you.
It's
So
super-
we want you to use these before and during your implementation. So this hopefully will improve your implementation. So when users buy your product and upload a file, the files will be consistently good.
Before I came here, the last day before I came here, we solved finally a problem that we have been working with 2 weeks. A file produced by us, and Solibri doesn't eat this file. Well, Solibri did eat it, but it was another system that didn't import it. So the implementer in that company, they had to, I think it was bSync, they had to go into that file and find exactly where the error was, and it was some missing brackets there.
Yeah.
But it took 2 weeks, and then it came back through the designer and doesn't understand anything, but he just passed the message on, and it took like 10 minutes for us to fix.
That's great. That's awesome. I
And
mean,
then it's then on the next release, and that is not before Christmas. And,
yeah, I mean, this is part of the development life cycle, but I totally get it.
Super nice, because now I instructed her just to add these brackets because it was the last line in the file always, so it was easy for her to do. So
Yeah,
she is good, but
I mean, this is great. This is the kind of, let's say, win-win situation that we hope for. We have just this morning, I received an email that our implementers forum session for Tampere in Summit has been confirmed. So we have a
so
session.
you are confirmed.
Yeah. So I hope that you, Autodesk, ODA, so everyone that has benefited from the implementers forum discussion and for this kind of service could explain to the people how useful this is for you. So this is a win-win situation. Again, I'm looking forward to that. And again, trying to wrap up, this idea is just to let you know, so this presentation is just to let you know, this is under development. We're really looking forward for you to upload files and let us know. Give it a try. You probably have more files than we do. So upload them, check them. If you find a problem, if you find a mistake, there is a validate@buildingsmart.org, or you can simply write me or Johan. We are happy to help. And again, we just presented this for the second time in the summit. The first time was presented in Boston. We will be socializing this tool more and more. We will be publishing and advertising a little bit more together with the, let's say, development process. We are building this tool with the help of the rooms and with the help of the implementers forum. And I'm confident this can grow in something really valuable.
Yeah, and this is super. I will give this to the developer straight away, because then they can test when they implement that the file they export are good.
Yeah.
So I don't need to do that all the time. So,
Yeah, happy to save some of your time.
yeah.
Okay, I don't know if you have any other questions other than that. Otherwise, I think we can close this. Let me think if there's anything online. No, people that gave up. Okay.
This was super useful, I would say.
Okay, so let me formally close the meeting. I think there is a recording. So for those of you online, thank you for joining. And I'm looking forward to see you in one of the next sessions of the summit. Have a great time.
Thank you.
Thank you.